Hey everybody, welcome to the Amateur Otaku Podcast. We are talking Attack on Titan, the final season. I am your host for this evening, Michael Thomas, also going by Mike Ackerman. Joining me is co-host, co-founder of this wonderful podcast, my great friend, the Punisher Titan himself, Isaac Wolf. Isaac, I know you and Brandon covered last week's episode, and it was a very great, like, introspective type of episode, like going into a lot of the characters' history and their relationships and the baggage that they've carried with them all the way up to this point. What, like, I know you've read the manga, so I'm not going to ask what are your overall thoughts on like how that played out, really, but just like overall that episode and being the foundation, the groundwork leading into this episode, what were your thoughts on like how the season's progressing pace wise? You know, like, is it flowing well enough for you? Do you wish we speed things up, slow things down? Because I thought it was really nice having like a campfire setting and just talking for an episode. I thought that was a nice change of pace.
You pretty much said exactly what I said. It's you know me and some of what I'm mostly interested in when it comes to storytelling. It's the character interactions, and what better way to have a character interaction than a campfire that you have before the shit hit the fan, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great way to just ease the tension, or however you want to call it.
Oh, I don't think it eased the tension very much, but I feel like, yeah, I understand what you mean though, in the sense that like they have a better understanding of each other, right? So they can work together and have a certain level of respect for each other, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, I can't blame Gene to punish Reiner's face like that.
Yeah, I mean, Reiner wants to punch himself in the face somehow on every single episode, so I totally get where Gene's coming from. Gene is such an interesting character too. He's becoming like my favorite character of the series. I don't know, man. It's just something about last week's episode I thought was really cool, and that leads us into this week's episode, which is episode 85, known as Traitor. And man, this is a lot. It's, again, like kind of piggybacking off of what we established in the episode prior. Eren is still not a main focal point of the show. Ever since what happened with him and Zeke, I don't know how many episodes it's been now, but it feels like it's been a long time.
He has 3 or 4, I think.
So about a month, as far as watching it live is concerned. I just think this episode was really interesting, seeing the two factions, the alliance between the two come together, and the entire episode is essentially a heist, right? We're trying to steal this flying boat so we can go stop the rumbling. It's a very simple premise, but in Attack on Titan fashion, it's executed surprisingly well with great character moments. Flock, I just feel, is awful, a terrible human being, and I can't wait to see him get his comeuppance in some capacity. But yeah, like, what were your overall thoughts of this episode?
First of all, I checked, and this is the 5th episode without any interaction of inclusion of Eren, actually.
That's crazy.
And I like this episode, actually. In the regard that it didn't stretch out. It didn't feel like I'm with you, like you said off air, that it felt filler-y, but at the same time, I feel like they didn't overstate its welcome in this fight, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fight that you could, depending on anime and manga, drag on for 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And it looks like it didn't went on to do that, so to speak, in terms of how they handle it in this episode. So, which is good in my book.
I'm with you. You're right. Like I mentioned this before. I didn't mention this on air. We were talking a little bit before we went live, but yeah, it feels like this is an episode that you could have cut out. Especially, I know you and Brandon have talked about like time constraints and are we going to do the ending of this series justice with the little amount of time we have left? This is a moment where I feel like we could have condensed it a little bit. It could have been half an episode, maybe like you guys were talking about before, Demon Slayer. The times on Demon Slayer episodes were varying because some were longer, some were shorter, based on what that episode required. I feel like this is a similar case where I feel like this episode may have been able to been tacked on to last week and make that like a 45-minute episode. But with that said, I think everything that happens here is great. Like I wouldn't cut it out for content. I would just cut it out if we end up skimping on the ending of this series. So if they're able to manage the time and everything that they've already have going forward, perfectly fine with this episode. I want your thoughts on like the title's called Traitor, and we see this is something that I really appreciate about this episode. It's really easy to hate the Jaegerist, to hate Eren, and kind of that genocide that Hanji was talking about all last episode about how genocide is wrong. It's morally wrong, even if it's going to mean the end of Paradis, which is a shame that it has come this far. What were your thoughts on like how they kind of framed the mentality of some of these Jaegerists? Because aside from Flock, who we both agree is a piece of crap, everybody else is like, we have to go through with this because if we don't, they're going to come kill us, which is a mentality I feel like Eren does share, but he doesn't voice. You know, Eren's always talking about his freedom and he's not going to let anybody take that away from him. But also, like, they have a target on their back and they will always be hunted. They will always be killed. I just thought it was really interesting how they kind of gave us a different outlook on what some of these Jaegerists are thinking, aside from the extreme views of Flock and Eren.
I mean, it's all about the whole humans' will to survive, and sometimes ending up depending how desperate you get to have to become. Mm-hmm. And for some, you can go that. You can come to the step that you need to maybe do something that is out of line because you believe that must be because you have no options left or something.
Yeah.
So I can see what the Jaegerists are coming at, but I can also see it's just that I don't agree with the genocide stuff, but I don't know how I would have been in their elegant situation myself if I lived in that world. So I can't say if I blame them or not.
Yeah, it goes back to, again, the previous episode. That's why I keep saying like the foundation of everything happening in this one is connected more so to the previous episode than I think any other episode this season, really, because that idea of, right, this war has been going on for 2,000 years. And look how many characters died. Look how many ghosts are not haunting, but like are on Hanji's mind from last week, right? Like all of those people who we saw die. We saw all of these characters die over the course of the 4 seasons of the show. And that's why I feel like Gene is such a great character, because he knows that this is wrong, but he still has that internal struggle, right? Of, yeah, but I can have a wife and a family and we can be at peace. Instead, he's going to constantly be in this war. between these two factions that are basically the same anyway. You know, that's why Gabi as a character was so irritating in the first half of the final season, because her entire shtick was we have to go kill those island devils, even though she is literally the same as them. And I'm not just talking about like metaphorically speaking, like no, they're all subjects of Ymir. And they're just being used as a tool to harass this island that didn't even know they existed. And so I feel like that's why the first half of this part of the story was kind of rough for me. But as we're kind of developing these deeper themes and meanings, it's all starting to really come together and make a fascinating study of the human condition, essentially.
Yeah, I can totally agree on that regard. It's just, it's it's a. I don't really know what else to say in an episode like this because it was, but because that entire scene where Mikasa and Coney were just we can stop without killing them, right? And then the colonel and all that, yeah. Is he a colonel or a major or a general? I can't remember.
We'll just go with Colonel. That's fine. We all know who we're talking about.
Yeah, he apologizing, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But also the fact that Reiner down there say, "Don't worry, we can handle it. We understand." That in it of itself, even if it's maybe some small stuff, it's still pretty powerful moments if you really think about it, because they understand each other.
Exactly.
Just and they understand that they probably have to kill former comrades, but they don't want to because they are former comrades and they've known those people for X amount of years. So it becomes a, I wouldn't call a moment 22, but you get what I'm saying here.
That's why that scene with Connie and Armin, right, and those two other soldiers who I don't remember for the life of me, but I guess they were they were in the Corps together, so they knew them. That's all that matters for this story. But like the moment where essentially Connie almost becomes the Joker because he has to force himself to kill his friends to inevitably save the world that hates him and his people, right? Like he's fighting to protect the ones who inevitably are going to try and kill them yet again if they successfully stop the rumbling. And it's just that's why this final confrontation that's going to end up coming with Eren is such an interesting story. And it's such a thought-provoking story. There are things that I don't like about what we are doing with Eren's character. There's still a lot that they haven't shown either about Eren's character because, like you said, it's been 5 episodes or so since we've last seen him. But yeah, just like the idea of like you see the cracks happening in Connie's psyche over the last few episodes, and you just feel really bad for these kids because again, we saw like the ED always hits you when we see young Eren, Armin, and Mikasa, and they're like 10 or 11 years old, and that's the age they were when Eren's mom was eaten by that Titan and the walls fell. And it's like these kids know nothing but suffering, and Eren has a chance to give them peace, but he's gonna do it through genocide and mass murdering innocents. Them having to make that choice is a hard one, and that's why I'm saying like the Jaegerists, I totally get where they're coming from. It's a really, really hard dilemma, I feel like, to balance, because can you really feel at peace knowing that you wiped out all of humanity? I think I'd have nightmares, you know?
Yeah. It's just it's sort of like how could I have solved this better? Could I have solved this much more peacefully? It could have. It's all about a massive whatism in the whole regard.
Yeah, because like I honestly like I've made it clear that I disagree with Aaron's methods, but I legitimately don't know what's the better way, you know? Because look how much crap Reiner, Annie, and Gabi had to see before they stopped calling them Island Devils, you know? Like it took a lot to convince these guys that yeah, maybe you guys you had it wrong about us. Do you have does every Marlian have to go through that experience to understand that these people from Parody are just trying to mind their own business? Because like again, it took Gabi so long, and I get she's a stupid kid, but it took her so long to realize she was on the wrong side of this, and so many people had to die for her to realize she was on the wrong side of this. It's almost like are they a lost cause? And then you have a character like Falco who is just a saint. He's basically their Armin, right? I love the parallel of Gabi and Falco being Aaron and Armin. And I think that really shines through seeing how driven both Gabi and Aaron are, showing that they are the same. And like Aaron said, throughout the series, all the time, he will not stop. He will keep moving forward. And Gabi and her team here, not that she's the leader or anything, but this group of characters, they're going to keep moving forward as well. What does that final confrontation look like? And are we like, is half of the human race going to be wiped out in the process?
I have also thought about if Eren had succeeded, when would he know how to stop? What would have happened with all the Wall Titans if he gets stopped? I should say.
How? So you're saying like what happens with the Wall Titans if he causes the rumbling?
Yeah, if I was so when he's finished with the rumbling, what would happen then?
They would probably just be stagnant again because he's controlling them with the founder, right? So I'd feel like he would just tell them to kill themselves, or he would just rebuild walls and put them back in the walls, though you wouldn't need walls anymore. I feel like that's an easy fix because again, Aaron's entire motivation was I want to kill all the Titans. I can totally see him using the Titans to his advantage and then just killing every single one of them.
Yeah.
Speaking of Titans, though, like we've been talking about the philosophy and the meanings behind some of these character interactions. Let's talk about just like we had the female Titan show back up for the first time in years.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It feels like it's been, I would say, 6 years since we saw the female Titan in action. How was it seeing Ani and Reiner teaming up and just kicking the crap out of these soldiers?
Well, it was well animated kicking ass.
True that. One thing that kind of bugs me about Annie's character is that we in this season are doing our best to redeem her, quote unquote redeem her. And so it's like, oh, she was forced to do these things she didn't really want to, blah blah blah. And it's like you go back and watch season 1 or season 2, whichever season was where she was like the main bad guy. You go back and watch that season and she is like taking joy killing these dudes in the most gruesome way possible. And then in this episode, she does it again. She like just drop kicks a couple dudes and they just explode. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't buy Annie's quote unquote redemption arc one bit. She is enjoying kicking the crap out of these dudes.
Yeah. It's a bit much. Or I mean, it's I can see it from the regard that you can understand where she's coming from, why she's like she is, but it's sort of like how okay, I can't talk about that because anime only. But or okay, it's sort of like I can use this regard. You can have a character. You can have a character understand why they went the way they did. I would dare say you can understand why Anakin turned into the dark side in episode 3 because he got desperate on how to say Padme.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of Return to the Jedi, you can't redeem him even if he sacrifices himself. But you can understand how he turned like this because of his desperation.
Yeah,
If that makes any sense.
That's one thing. Like, I'm not trying to turn this to a Star Wars podcast, but I really do appreciate in Revenge of the Sith, he has the vision of Padme's death, and he that's what turns him to the dark side of him trying to save Padme. Right? That's a very understandable motivation. That's just really good work by George Lucas there, in a trilogy that's very, very hit or miss, and when they miss very hard.
Yeah,
that's a moment that I really think is underrated. Of his turn to Darth Vader makes sense, and it wasn't necessarily willingly. It's not like he was just power hungry, though that could be part of it. But I mean, that's again, I like when you have a character like Anakin, like Aaron, that you understand their motivation, even though again you wholeheartedly disagree with what their methods are and what they're doing. I totally get where Aaron's coming from. I totally get the pain that he's felt his entire life, of even going back to season 1 and seeing all of his friends, all of his friends excelling, and he doesn't even know how to use his ODM gear, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like he's trying, he's doing his best to fight because he feels like he has nothing else to do, and he's constantly failing. Now he's got all the power in his hand, and he's never going to fail again. It's great stuff. That's what I love about Attack on Titan, and that's why I keep saying on this podcast, what's it going to be like when you play this thing back from beginning to end? It's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Did you check out the preview for next episode?
No, I did not.
Yeah, it looks like a banger. It looks great. That's all I'll say. I know you already have an idea of what would happen in the next episode anyway, but for the folks who are anime onlys and don't watch previews, I'm not going to get into it. Was there anything else, Isaac, you wanted to cover with this episode of Attack on Titan?
No. It's just more that it shall be interesting to see how they cover this series up with the amount of episode we have left.
Yeah, we are getting very, very close to the end of the series, guys. And trust me, you have no idea what's coming. It is going to be epic. Hopefully they can do it justice, because reading the book, it's a lot of stuff. And I don't know if they can fit it in the runtime they have in a satisfying way. I'm sure that they could do it. So I'm pretty sure it is going to do the entire series, but in a satisfying manner. That's the biggest question. But that is it for this episode of the Amateur Otaku Podcast, Attack on Titan edition. Again, that was episode 85. Traitor, you guys, we appreciate you on this journey with Attack on Titan every single week here with us every Sunday. And if you're catching the replays, we appreciate you guys as well. Let us know what your thoughts are on episode 85 of Attack on Titan. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can hit us up on Twitter at Amateur Otaku Pod. You can find Brandon Alvarado, the Scarlet Fan 52, on Twitter at the Scarlet Fan 52. He's the guy usually running this ship, but I had to sub in for him because he's knocked out like Captain Levi for today. We'll talk about that later. But Isaac, where can people find you and what can they expect this week on the Amateur Otaku?
Well, you can, first of all, you can find my work at Web Entertainment. You can find me, what's up on the Amateur Otaku? Well, we have more Doron, more My Hero Academia Vigilantes and My Hero Academia, more Attack on Titan, and Yo-Yo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders.
Everybody loves JoJo's except for Isaac, so those are always fun episodes. You guys can find me at Novice Cinephile everywhere, just about. Just type in Novice Cinephile on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's the Novice Cinephile, just so you know. Yeah, talking Attack on Titan here with these guys, My Hero Academia. It's always a blast talking everything in the world of anime. And if you want to check out my written work, you can go to novicecinephile.com or collider.com. With that said, guys, we will catch you next time. Have an awesome day. Keep moving forward.